some impromptu thinking to begin part 3 of this Impromptu Profundity audiobook. I'm drawn to artists and stories about real artists. I'm trying to better understand the significances and meanings that set well-seasoned and experienced musicians apart from the others. How does what I do in instrumental piano fit in with some of the other styles? I've played the piano since about age 7. Early on in learning this instrument, I would want to record myself playing with drums and guitar. At a point, however, I realized that the mechanical, repetitive drum rhythm is not what I want going in my music. I came to the understanding that time itself is a fluid element, and we can entirely make a break from these set, mechanical patterns. Since about 1998, I've seen how rhythm is a malleable, pliable element in any composition. You can see, right away, how this is just very fertile literary ground. Why don't you just speak about the meaning of life itself, for myself? Philosophically, making a break from mechanistic rhythm is something like coming into paradise. I'm just starting out in this line of thinking, somewhat for the sake of argument. My mind can do with it what it will. I really like my kind of free-form writing and musical style, so I wouldn't want to ever again feel constrained to mechanistic, repeating patterns. My music is more rhapsodic. It traverses so many various rhythms in any given piece. The diverse rates and time signatures, I think, are part of the free expression of it. At any rate, I sit and write. I guess that the main thing I'm doing with this is being receptive. Resting my hands on my word processor keyboard to get down any thought that arises. When a person is in communion with a higher ascended being, so as to build literary, musical, and artistic works, possibilities just abound. It's wrong, then, to think in any self-limiting or constraining ways. Any line of thinking or melody has possibility and potential if you can't get it down on paper quick enough to catch it. That is, if such has certain basic criteria. I enjoy starting out in an unplanned manner and just seeing what, if anything, materializes. The piano music on my headphones sounds so good this morning. I just know I've got to move away from rigid constraints of my writing this morning and think only about the abundance of good possibilities. These are just some ways to start out writing. There aren't any rules to impose. Your idea is just as good as mine is. I enjoy sitting on this bed with my headphones on and just getting down every possible idea that I can this morning, within limits. Having of time on my hands equates to the equity. The time is just ahead of our lunch, and I sit to get any ideas down that may be about. After lunch I'll somewhat collect my thoughts better, I think. But for now, I'm just imagining reaching my hands and arms up past the sides of my face and head, threading the needle, and hopefully releasing the pressure I feel at the sides of my head. At any rate, our weather today is sunny and hot. Temperatures into the upper 80s, with clouds and storms expected over the next 2, maybe 3 days. We've gotten past our lunch and midday medicines, and I've returned to our apartment and gotten this writing together again. The time is later, and it's after our dinner, around 5:30 this Monday evening. I've gotten situated with my writing, and am going to allow thoughts to freely go onto my media. There's a bit of a hollowness in my moods this evening, as if I'm affected by a particular kind of restlessness, and I'm trying to figure out quite what is causing it. My spiritual inspiration has been overflowing and abundant for such a long time. It seems very rare that I have this sort of lamp of unearthed in my writing. I'm wondering quite just what is on my mind. I would wish that my spirit guide could just let her hair down and relate unto me what is bothering her. I'm thinking that I've got various concerns in a time like this one. We've all seen more than our share of trouble, and I'm no exception. But, in consoling myself, I would say that there's only one person that I have to worry about. Myself. I think that I'm just so bothered by the mistakes of others that I seem to be losing sight of me. But, such is life. My writing success rate has been very high through the first half of this year, and I've rarely been stymied or gotten discouraged by writer's block. The trick to moving past, I think, is to continue puzzling over any bogged down predicament. Because, if I labor over the literary flowing for long enough, I'll eventually come up with a way past it. The technique of letting a visual image, such as of the way water flows down a mountainside, or how a cyclist starts out shakily and gains momentum and balance until he's moving right along and gets to his destination. Such visual imagery can carry a reader's attention along down the page. At any rate, I'm waiting to get these evening medicines, and I'll get back to my apartment. Now, it's after a night's rest, and right before I go to my morning meeting to get medicines and a bite to eat. And I'm still given to using Jeffy imagery to further finish this article. If I can somewhat elevate my mind from the mundane concerns of the time, I'll find my concluding thoughts and get along to the second article. My reader can see that there's not much in my mind right now, other than I'm reminded of the George and Ira Gershwin song, which goes like, I hope that she turns out to be someone who'll watch over me. Some people have this inscripted on their tombstone, and I might well be one of them. At any rate, I see now where I have been going with my thinking the past few days. At any rate, some poets, writers, thinkers, artists, and dreamers, and schemers are like this. And I guess that we should be able to spot the difference, and know just what we think and believe about important issues in our lives. So, to me this is partly the reason why journaling, and the craft arts, and folk arts are so important in our society. And how to see this? Well, I have thought, and this is the best, I guess, that I can come up with, to conclude the first article in this part 3 of this Impromptu Profundity audiobook. I hope, as well, that you can get a sense of the fervency, in some ways, of my spirit's guidance, in a time like this one. In 21st century American living, with the right oversight, I would say, some problems could be avoided altogether. And I hope that this is truthful, and matches up with what you would say at the end of the day. At any rate, I'll wrap these thoughts up, and add them in with the others. All for now, Greg. Till then, as I sit to somewhat peer inwardly, in writing this second article of this third part of the Impromptu Profundity audiobook, I'm impressed with how well things in this life go, when everyone does their part, and there aren't any obstacles, or impediments to us accomplishing our objectives. We can accomplish them. Maybe seeing things work so well, on an ordinary day, such as this one, will give unto me confidence in my future. Certainly I've been able to get a lot of work done. I'd say that my writing course, for one thing, has been very successful and productive, for a while. Anyway, this is a good beginning of an article, and I can add into it across my time, today. At any rate, these are some thoughts. Yesterday afternoon's work was so good to push through, without hesitation, or fuss, and then simply rest in it being done, and behind me. So, that was really alright. This morning, some of us went to the main office, and got our monthly medicine taken care of. As said, all went well. This afternoon, we're expecting rain and thunder, after 3 p.m., so this is what we'll likely see. Well, we got some rain and thunder. I'm somewhat affected by the frequent storms that we've been having. These usually tend to scare me. The chances for a cyclone are enough to make me worried. I think I'm just getting older. It's the next day, the third Thursday morning in June this year, and a small line is passing through. I've gotten my medicine, and just had a bite to eat. The worst of our weather has passed. Now it's just a breezy drizzle. And now it's a downpour. And now it's a misty fog. Different ways of this weather, as it's moving through. I found that it's really difficult finding any belief in oneself, from day to day. The weight of self-criticism is usually so great. But then I'll get a chance to hear one of my audio or video chapters played back, and I'll be very impressed by the unique talent. At any rate, my going has really slowed for the recent few days. This new chapter is not wanting to move along. But then the good Lord will work magic, and I'll find myself ahead of my goals. I'll be struggling just to keep up with my progress. But have you ever thought how most people work best when they have to work around a handicap? This has been something like the story of my life. I've written about this numerous times before now. It's still true. Successful people aren't supermen, they've usually adapted to unique challenges. Just a reminder. At any rate, On a day like this one, I find myself worrying that I could lose my sobriety. It's just that I sometimes feel as though I'm tossed against the rocky shoreline. Contrary emotions are sometimes smaller, and don't affect me much. But sometimes they're larger, and their effect is worse. It's hard to boldly chart a future path when you've been so upset by the severity of some current events. This is what my reader doesn't see, necessarily. On any given writing session, there will have been at least some very crazy circumstances and contemporary events, and these things are sometimes so distracting. It's easy to forget why one is doing media work at all. I've said how some people should have gotten help a year or more ago. Then they would have had some oversight for when they do make the wrong choice. Their situation could have been remedied with some help. Well, it's not easy to begin a new chapter in an audiobook when I'm still upset about someone who went wrong. But this is sometimes what we have to do as writers. We'll have to continue walking on past the trouble. At any rate, our blustery, breezy weather has come to stillness. Now, after the squall line has passed through, our weather is cloudy, and with a sense of stillness. I think that there's something to be said for putting the past in the past, and for somewhat squaring away the mental illness and disturbed times. We see this almost every week. It's interesting how older and younger will be different at some times. I think that the decade from one's middle 40s to middle 50s for most people brings such changes that it's almost night and day. This should suffice to explain many of the generational divides you see in our society, and how, after a person's middle 50s, the focus, for many people, somewhat shifts from the mortal sphere and its concerns to the ascended, immortal lands around this universe. I think that it's good when someone will write of these sorts of journeys and changes, because there is such a shroud of mystery around the veil between the worlds, and more study is needed. Anyways, this is somewhat what this writing has mainly been about, for 5 years or more of my life. These meditations around someone's departure, as there had been loss in my family, and there were 2 or more deaths in my home family nucleus, with the loss of our home's benefactors, and closure of the home. Since there's really not a lot of conclusive information about the great beyond, we increasingly want to read writing in the areas of parapsychology and metaphysics. I've been a student of this lore, and these sorts of writings, since I began to enter the adult realm as a 19-year-old. At any rate, I've somewhat recently rediscovered my Jazz Seasons, Volumes 3 and 4, albums, and am impressed. The sonic clarity and variety of the synthesizer settings, especially in Volume 3, make these interesting listens. I found, through the years, that anywhere I hang my hat is home, the act of living itself being a meeting of the challenges as they are, the specifics of my living arrangement just being a facilitation of what can be so happy as it is, especially when I'm enjoying the hobby path or craft practice. At any rate, these thoughts appear to be coming to their conclusion about now, so I'll wrap this writing up and edit with the others. Now, I hope my reader has a great weekend and new week ahead. All for now, Greg. Tilda. In starting this third article of the third part of this Impromptu Profundity audiobook, I'm just going to get some initial ideas down into this word processor and just see how this writing session compares to others previously. Do these ideas seem larger and stronger in going onto this media, or more minute? Does this beginning paragraph have more or less of a sense of solidity and permanence? Is my walking sure or hesitant? Do I seem to be facing more or less resistance? And just how is my grip? My sense of command over these ideas? These can all be important questions in sizing up the new word of this morning. I've seen how my concepts and understandings have been somewhat shaken by recent events of the past week or so. Such as this makes me somewhat to doubt the time, in a broader sense. Is our worldview at risk? Are we to continue walking? Or maybe stop to check our vital signs? I think I must have just had a hallucination, or something. Maybe I observed a lower order phenomena, and am questioning my own integrity, first, maybe, and the encompassing lands. Or something concurrent to, or about this time we are living in. Such as the maybe overly intense rays from the sun. The planet is telling us something. Or I'm questioning the seismic stability of our continent, for this part of the world. I'm also remembering something like how there must be some serious embedded corruption in the lower classes, which our spirits would tell us about, if they thought we could see. We've truly seen too much news about alcohol and narcotic-fueled, and even weapons cultures. Which, doesn't that sort of thing always come to its own early end? I just don't want to be in the path of it, when it blows. I think that some of our uniquely purist and idealistic spiritual views onto this world might be an illusion, in some cases. Many men and women, in actuality, at least among the lower classes, have lives based in such lower ID, and the obscene, crude, rude configurations of such sensually based trappings. The faking of well-being chemically and artificially, and will be on their way out. Some will have vehicles, temporarily, but they're in process of losing them. Nice possessions tend to get pawned for cash when monies get tight. Many people have a lower order concept of spirituality, or don't know or understand the healthy spiritually socialized and cultured classes. More young people every day are taking up apartments and getting by from drinking episode to episode. Taking and consuming narcotics, I think, are par for the course there. So, you see, this looks like the backdrop which God sees from within a type of conscience like mine own. As these sorts of backgrounds and histories haven't disappeared. They live on in other, even poorer lives, many of whom might never make it to real cleanliness and sobriety. Many people of the world will not make it out. Cars, alcohol, women, street drugs, statistics, prisons, and graveyards, and worse, claim most of these people. So, you can see that looking back, for someone like myself, is a kind of scanning backwards in time, into the most decrepit, foreboding arenas of existence which one could imagine. Many families have problems such as drug and alcohol dependency in their youth. And these have to live, and exist somewhere. You would find out about this lower class of people quickly, if you fell out of your sobriety, or your mental health well-being status changed. How easy it might well have been to allow myself to get lulled into dreams of hazy, alcoholic wasting, as a young person. I believe that I've spoken the truth about these life paths, and I've been through them previously, and see all of the blessings of my sobriety through the lenses of this past history. Such visions make me scared and careful to remember to keep a firm grip on the good things that I do have, and foremost among them is my sobriety and my sanity. So, when my recent understandings and concepts are so shaken as to make myself question everything, such suggests that there's a serious seismic or tectonic rift of some kind, which we will have to get past. Anyways, you always blame your poets and artists and dreamers when there's appeared to be a rift. When this happens, will be when I get kicked around like a rag doll. My way is one of a poet, in the basic sense of the word. I'm pretty much of a pure, and very generalistic mediumistic vessel. The voice, through which spiritual waters flow through, onto external media. People tend to associate me with any emergent reality, good or bad. I took the recommendation, we should make ourselves holy and righteous vessels for the higher ascended beings to make best usage of, and through, somewhat seriously. If you're wondering just what it is that makes my day complete, it's the fullest realization of my amateur radio enthusiast aspirations. I always thought I would have to start my own station, with my own content, to get my music heard by others. So surprising, then, to find out that this required not the right radio, but a personal computer station. My music's reached tens of thousands of listeners through the years. I've really been granted the fulfillment of my dreams, and couldn't be happier. So, and when you might tend to blame the poets, writers, and musicians, whenever there appears to be a rift emergent, I guess it's because they are the closest to real experience that you know of. I myself get kicked around like a rag doll, as soon as people distrust the spiritual currents which flow among people in general. I'm used to it. This is mainly because I write in spiritualistic terms, and so represent the closest to emergent space that ordinary people may ever contact. I always absorb blame and abuse because of the animalistic infestations that get forced over on our society. I myself started out with a broken sound, and fell into mental illness and insanity, back shortly after the Christian millennium, in 2003, but was then handed a path of sobriety and righteousness, and with an eye of discernment charted and voyaged the much higher course. That's what made all the difference in my life. I was transformed. I started out spiritually dead and mentally defeated back in 1998, never realizing my poor predicament. But after my fall, was allowed by grace to fly with the eagles. At any rate, you can easily see just what a good spirit being can and will do in a life. And I for one somewhat follow the ways and values of my spiritual forebears, mine and my mom's and dad's ancestors, by way of our family photos and albums. In case you were wondering what it is that I believe in and, having through God's grace conquered the illegal substances and alcohol dependency of my 20s decade, I'm highly conscious of the most decrepit, foreboding lands, as I mentioned, at the juncture of unemployment, addictions, and empty time, which reside around the borderlands, the fringes, of our healthy culture. This heightened consciousness of those fringes, where the defeated live and die, are why I try through all means possible to strengthen my ties to the health and well-being structures in our society, because I wouldn't ever wish to go back through that. But I'm starting to think that our healthy worldview, even, could be endangered. At any rate, these ideas seem to be coming to their conclusion about in through here, so I'll wrap this article up and add it in with the others. Now, all for now, Greg. Till then, I've found, through the years, that I'm pretty good at coming up with strong written content. I sometimes just need a little spur to my productivity. People know that my values are mainly around the best written output and acquiring it efficiently. And so, a morning like this one will see me getting this done. I've been writing for this journal for more than 25 years, and I know how to get good results in a wide variety of circumstances. I think that my reader can see how, for my part, no matter the circumstances, such lemons, such setbacks will always be made into healthy, quality product, which is what it's supposed to do, and doesn't hurt the stomach. For my part, at any rate, there will be some good outcome. Then, at least, we'll have something to show for the time spent. Good equity won't be revoked. At any rate, it's sure good to have a good, safe, clean environment, and to know how to keep it kept up, to accomplish whatever good goals we have in living. But, just because a scene is healthy and productive on the home front, doesn't always mean that times are that good, throughout the land. In fact, right now, I'm willing to suggest that our worldview, as recovered, clean living disabled Americans, might seem like it's in jeopardy. Such has been the severity of some of the times and circumstances we have had to share our country, our world with. I can't help it, but if an earthquake or volcano doesn't disrupt our healthy, recovered lives, I think that some of us will see how much as the TAHOists do see that weapons of war tend to backfire and self-destruct when placed in incompetent hands. And such weapons are very easy, too easy, to come by in our land. And then, people aren't given any training or support for quite what to do with those weapons. At any rate, I just about can't stand to write about topics like this, because of the hopelessness of some men's predicament. But, when I feel the strain as much as I have lately, I'll get into the problems with guns in America. I think some guys' instincts are not there. A grown man should easily be able to see that a firearm is an intensely concentrated quantity of destructive power contained in a tiny, tiny package. And, sadly, in our culture, some men and women are borderline. No one in his right mind, unless he has a badge or a special permit, would want this kind of intensely concentrated destructive power in his or her environment, much less on his person. Especially not the person who knows that he's special and who needs extra help. Your instincts should tell you to stay away from that kind of thing. But that's an easy thing for me to say, because my mom's half-brother, my uncle, killed himself with a semi-automatic handgun when I was 9. My Uncle Doug was someone I looked up to, but he had some little problem with illegal substances. I wasn't expecting him to die in that way. He was teaching himself to play the organ and the guitar, and his artistic books of music tablature came to me after his funeral. Thus cousins asked ourselves, why, Doug, why? After his funeral, and I think that I rightly came to the conclusion that he would still be alive if he just hadn't had a firearm in his possession. If he had just hurt himself with a knife, he could have turned out like myself. a success story with scars, who has many books, and artworks, and music albums, and videos to his credit. Only he was denied this outcome, because of that gun that was in his possession. So, in my 20th decade, I instinctually knew to never have a gun. In fact, I was offered a gun, in 1997. Living alone, in the city, a friend thought I might like some means of self-defense. But, I refused, absolutely, and it took me years to even forgive him his offering me that gun. My mind thought, are you trying to get me killed? Because part of me knew I could turn it against my own self. And sure enough, I got suicidal later that year, and hurt myself badly with a knife. So, I still think, my instincts kept me out of trouble. At any rate, I'm in a good mood this morning. This is because I busted some moves yesterday morning, and got some housework done. I swept and mopped most of the house, including my bedroom, and under the bed and chairs. At least, you see, this puts me in a good position to get this good writing work done this morning. So from one type of win, comes another type of win. That's all I know about it. Well, these thoughts presently are coming to their conclusion, so I'll put them away for the time being, and get some rest. At any rate, I myself carry gratitude, that I'm shown the good faith in myself, to allow me to write this little journal. After all, we would all want to be the one to save the day, or make people smile. Anyone would love to have the honor. Well, these are some thoughts. I put an independent artist's CD on my optical Victrola, and my mind and spirit is treated to a sound which appears to encapsulate and some of the human predicament. This is just what this person's music does. Such seems to stand for the human trauma, our 21st century perspective, known life on Earth. We've got beautiful weather, at last here where I am. Only a small chance of thunderstorms for the next day or two. This weather is hot, though. If you think you don't need your air conditioner, you'll quickly realize that hot, and sticky, and itchy is not a very comfortable way to be. Living with box fans in the windows is just not the same. This is much better. At any rate, this writing is coming along pretty well. This morning, I think that I've got almost 10 pages in this article so far. I guess that when my words run dry, I start remembering again the pain of the day. I tell myself again that only time will heal it. The pain just isn't going to go away, just because we can agree that some people are incompetent to own a firearm, and that it's too easy to get a gun in America. But time will heal. Anytime some few people are given power over many others, you run the risk of the system getting corrupted. Guns, especially, can give any one group power over others, depending on how they're used. The criminal justice system is based around careful enforcement of our laws, with firearms, and in clear light of just deterrence, and known penalties for offenses. But, just look at human enslavement in America in the 18th and 19th centuries. How many innocent people went to their graves from war while in forced labor, at gunpoint? Hundreds, even thousands, as that system persisted from the country's inception until the 1860s. It had been the same in Europe, as well. England had been imperialistic, and couldn't stop taking foreign peoples into captivity, and dominating them by force, at gunpoint. The Indian peoples, and South African, especially. The easy availability of guns had terrible effects over the whole of Earth, for hundreds of years. People misusing and abusing them. This is not very nice to talk about, but it was just the way it was for a long time. The gun placed in an incompetent person's hands is just as bad, still today. We've already seen the craziest miscarriages of justice, just in the recent 5 years. It's no secret the bad effects of guns in the wrong hands. So, each week seems to be a new permutation of this basic bad situation. Borderline people should know to avoid such intensely concentrated destructive power. Your instincts should show you that this would only give you a false sense of power. And you should never want that around you, at any rate. But, the right experts will always know how to use guns in the right way, with a badge, or special permit, that shows you have been properly trained to know what they are, and aren't. At any rate, these ideas appear to be coming to their eventual conclusion. Now, I'll wrap them up and add them in with the others. All for now, Greg. tilde peering into a light flowing of language symbols onto my page. This morning, I'm conscious of the strong potentialities contained within this new start on an essay, and I'm happy to just be shown this new beginning. This start to this fifth article, in this third part of this new audiobook, appears to be somewhat willing to come along, and I get down whatever I can come up with. We have a beautiful, sunny start on a new day this morning, and this writing can finish out this third part of this impromptu profundity audiobook today. It's good to have the necessary energy and inspiration to approach this goal this morning. I'll be able to add into this article as the day goes along. I'm sitting on this low bed before getting over to our office for our morning medicines and a small bite to eat to bring home and put in our microwave oven. I'm expecting the temperature outside to be hot and humid, so I'm mentally preparing myself for the walk. Today is the fourth Monday in June this year. Having some writing started this morning will give to my day a central focus, and I'll be able to add into it as the day gets along. I'm very glad to be in a stable home community, where everyone keeps their own place of. We here put some good upkeep work in over the weekend, and I'm very glad that that's taken care of. I'm sitting here, looking at the morning sunlight coming in through the open window blinds, and thinking how good I feel on a usual morning. A cup of coffee didn't hurt, either. At any rate, these thoughts are coming along well enough, and I've gotten over to the office, and am in line with the others to get these medicines. Such doesn't usually take too much time, and I somewhat enjoy this most mornings. Change of scenery is an interesting part of the day, most days, and seeing and hearing the different ways of the other consumers is usually eye-opening and surprising, as such is different every time. My writing is my own grounding and centering, and gives a strong complement to the various directions people will go in on any given day. I do have writing coming along right now, and such is a direct path to my peace and well-being, much like being tethered to the umbilical cord of an embryo. At least, this is the sense that writing gives me. At any rate, I can't tell that my sense of focus and command over my stream of thoughts is something of a component in the quality, to me, of this good morning. But a quick glimpse into the morning's forgetfulness or confusion tells me, plainly and simply, to stay close to my source. I really don't quite know how some others manage to get by without having an array of craft and personal care and home-keeping abilities to draw from in navigating the arduous day, any given day. I do try to stay close to these good personal upkeep rhythms and methods. I try to do this because a close relationship with a guiding spirit is a precious thing to have. I have lived in times in my life when I was much more alone, and this just isn't one of them. But outside of this close writing and personal upkeep relationship, it's so easy to make a misstep. I've long seen how any given choice outwardly might lead me wrong. This morning, for instance, an episode of telepathic forgetfulness might have gotten me off balance. But, quickly recognizing my mistake, I returned to my center line and began again. I react to something minuscule in a temperamental, fussy manner, and such makes me remember why I keep to myself more, anyway. Because of the errors which always creep into relationships and come in between friends, I'll rarely be open and willing with someone for long, until I begin seeking more for solitude and quiet times by myself. When I think of faith in God, I think of those who I've leaned on through the years. This means spiritual intelligences about my life. This is what I'm most blessed to know. Even today, just with this writing, which I'm trying to do, it requires patience and belief that such can still continue prospering, even when I've somewhat written a lot already. You would think that the levee would break, figuratively speaking, or something similarly perilous. But I myself trust the Lord, and every keystroke, every step is guided, I think, toward the good outcome. And this is nothing new. I seem to want little more than to revel in the communion and togetherness with my guiding spirit, and let everything, just every good thing, come at her pace, in God's time. It's good to think, as well, that I can get some sketching done, maybe this morning, instead of writing. So, I'll set this work at my word processor keyboard aside, for the time being, because It looks like smoother sailing right now is found in visual art. I have worked for an hour or so this morning to try and generate a sketched visual image, which could be used in an artistic way. Anyways, I have a somewhat complete sketching to start with this morning, and so maybe after lunch I can't come up with a second or a third. Our weather has gotten somewhat hazy, even overcast. These afternoon showers seem to be back. I think that if I come to a good conclusion, be it spiritual, aesthetic, or in design, or even politics, or ethics, in doing art, then such understanding has at least been profitable to that extent. At least I will have advanced and developed my theories, or philosophies, a bit further. I know of many artists these days whose work seems to ask, firstly, that the listener or viewer be at peace with the kind of inherent dissonance that is present in the vacuum of empty space. And then, out of that dissonance and chaos, they draw beautiful melodies and designs. But they always begin from dissonance or chaos. Some minds are based and begin somewhat in this dissonance or chaos, and then bring good works from out of that chaos. Some musicians do this. In a way, you can say that as humans, we inhabit a planet, Earth, which spins and pivots around our central star, the Sunday so, and the emptiness of space is really a hard vacuum. But our planetary sphere is enfolded by a breathable pocket of air. Only this pocket is surrounded by the vacuum. If you can't see, you see that the human form is like a harmonious symphony. But I think that a vacuum is a place of chaos. Life doesn't much live in a vacuum. Yet down here on the surface of the earth, we can live and dwell and journey and return, all in or within some of our Earth's atmosphere. But I think that the nagging doubts and distant worries around and outside our minds equate to the void, the vacuum within which our planet spins and orbits. As long as we remain in our oxygen pocket, we are all right. But we are constantly reminded of the encompassing void. And right now, I'm growing conscious of a great spacious volume around my mind, and somewhat wondering if I might be saying to the edge of space itself, to the edge of the void. At any rate, I've thought before about how, when part of us can see to the fringes of life on this planet, it causes the kind of a sensory deafening or overload at our ears. So, as this sound appears, or gets more insistent, we might see how our real or imagined actual spatial intersections might be further out, bigger, more vast. At any rate, some artists' works are more or less informed by the harsh, hard vacuum, and might not this be the source of the perceived dissonance? Our truth and beauty might be based in our human form, but we are all somewhat enfolded in the dissonance of the vacuum of empty space. At any rate, these are things which can be seen and found from my perspective this morning. Anyways, I'll wrap this writing up and send along your way now. All for now, Greg.